Hello, I'm Pedro Mora for Pacific.ca. Today we're featuring relevant information about Afghanistan. This time we're presenting David Markland, a member of stopwar.ca, who spoke recently in Vancouver. If you agree with his position on Afghanistan, please register your vote on nowpolling.ca. If you don't agree with his position on Afghanistan, please register your vote on nowpolling.ca. If you have a different opinion than the ones already listed on nowpolling.ca, please add your opinion in a few words and vote for it. Let your choice be counted, because that is what direct democracy is all about.
There'd be Afghanistan. I hope you have a vague idea of where it is and what it looks like between Pakistan and Iran, basically. And the war, as I hope people know, is going on mostly in the south and what they call the southeast, which looks more like the east when you look at the map. Those are the Pashtun areas of the country. Further north is the Tajik, basically, area, the more Iranian, as they say. The NATO contribution to the occupation started in Kabul, sort of in the upper right center, and then spread out to the north. So those are less violent areas in the Tajik kind of areas, and Turkmen and all these kind of ethnic groups up there. The NATO project sort of spread out into the north, boom, boom, and then hit the south, which is where Canada and Britain and then the Dutch and the Australians started working. They have their areas of responsibility or areas of operation down there. And then the U.S. is the lead NATO force throughout the East. The East is where the route between Kabul and Peshawar goes on, the Khyber Pass. Very independent Pashtun tribes that aren't federated nationally or federated widely. They're very kind of individualistic tribes there, very high mountains, whereas we're in the south in Kandahar, which is flatter, and the Pashtun tribes there are more federated, so they have a superstructure, the Durrani Pashtun Federation of Tribes. If you look at the Western opinion polls that they've undertaken in Afghanistan, there's been 15 or so through the last 4 or 5 years. The last one in particular, done for the BBC and ABC and CRD, the German television station. When they break that down by region, it's really interesting. Okay, so the overall result was, they ask, do you want Western forces in your country? And actually they ask American forces and NATO forces 2 separate questions. Afghans don't seem to distinguish. Their answers are almost identical. And on-the-ground reports confirm this, that Afghans just call all the foreigners Americans. The overall results, I think, are 35% nationally say, troops out. But if you look at the regional breakdown, it's kind of shocking. The east, the main province between Kabul and going into Pakistan, into Peshawar, the Khyber Pass area, the province there is Nangarhar, and the city is Jalalabad. And in that province, the responses were 90% saying troops out, U.S. troops out. In Kandahar, where we are, the number was 66%, 2/3 of the population saying, troops out. Helmand, very similar. Helmand right next door to Kandahar. That's the province that's very heavily into growing opium right now. Not that all the rest of them aren't, but that one in particular. I think they were like 60% troops out. And of course, those are all Pashtun areas, and those are all the areas where it's the most violent. What more to say of that? And of course, these are Western-done polls. And, anybody that considers the lay of the ground there knows that an Afghan knows who is asking the question when a scientifically designed opinion poll, randomly selected, all that kind of thing, they probably have a pretty good idea who's asking the questions. And as everybody that studies public opinion in occupied countries or in dictatorships knows, the responses of people that are opposed to the reigning authorities are likely to be biased low. And that's pretty obvious. But even in that situation, in a Western-run poll where everybody knows who's asking the questions, the answers are, like I said, pretty high in those Pashtun areas. In the Tajik areas in the north, they're much lower, in the 20% and that kind of thing. Also, there's been a lot of journalists with a lot of experience on the ground there who in the last year have remarked that everybody is against the foreign occupation now. And again, they're concentrating mostly in the south. They can't get out too much amongst the population because it is so rough there. But a series of reporters, including Carlotta Gall, has a lot of experience in Afghanistan over the last 10 years. Chris Sands, a very good journalist. I believe he's British, but he's written for the Dominion and for I think the Guardian, but now he's the foreign correspondent for the National, out of Abu Dhabi, whatever it is. So he's been there for, I think, at least 3 or 4 years in Afghanistan. He gets out amongst the population quite a lot, and he doesn't seem to embed. He's very good. So him and on the blog, I think it comes up every few weeks. So I, have a little list of all these journalists who have made comments like that. And it's quite large now, maybe 6, 8 very, very good journalists who've made comments like that, and even a few who've noted a lot of support for the Taliban. I haven't mentioned that, but the opinion polls come up with results of something like 4 to maybe as high as 10% people expressing support for the Taliban. The Canadian Forces does their own opinion polling, which they don't release, but they've said that when they poll people, they get responses between 10 to 15% support of Taliban, which means at least 15%. They wouldn't say that if it weren't. And of course, that's again, people know who's asking the question, and it's actually kind of silly to respond that you support the Taliban, considering that then they're going to target you or your village. So that's kind of an interesting fact. It's hard to know how to interpret that. But that support is rising. The support for the Taliban everybody agrees, is rising from a very low level, most likely. And the causes for these changes in opinion are most likely the rise in violence and the upcoming surge, or the surge that's already ongoing. Or I think all the troops are due in place by August. Extra 21,000 troops. It's actually more, but anyway, officially it's said to be 21,000. They should all be in place by August, and virtually all informed observers predict that that'll cause more violence. Every time there's been increases in troop levels before, there's been more violence, more civilian casualties, which rose again last year after they rose the year before, and more deaths in general. Also, the introduction of more troops in the past has resulted in actually pullbacks of troops. So Canada recently closed down an outpost in the Arghandab Valley in the Panjwai district. That's primarily where we've been fighting, in the Panjwai and the Zari district. And we had a bunch of small FOBs, forward operating bases, with, I think, between 20 and maybe 100 soldiers in each of these little bases as part of the ink blot strategy, the idea that you stick some, a strong point in an important population center. And this valley that we have been in is fairly densely populated. It's an agricultural district, maybe 50 kilometers outside of Kandahar city. And so it's the second most densely populated part of Kandahar province, Kandahar city obviously being the main one. And we removed one of these forward operating bases just a few weeks ago. And the Globe and Mail report indicated that the population was rather happy about that, saying the Canadians didn't protect them, and made the area a bit of a heat score for Taliban insurgents attacking them. So people were unsafe because of this base. So it's been pulled out. Incidentally, the Canadian forces claimed victory when they did that because, and this was their explanation, because they tore down all the stuff at the base and took it away so the Taliban couldn't steal it. That was the victory part.